The smell of burning corn is one you never forget. It's sweet, sickening, and thick, like caramel left too long on a stove until it blackens. That smell was the first thing I noticed when I woke at 2 a.m. To the glow outside my farmhouse window. By the time I ran out barefoot into the gravel driveway, the barn, my father's old corn barn, was already engulfed in flames. The barn wasn't just a storage shed. It was history. My grandfather built it in 1947. My father filled it with harvest after harvest until the day he died. And me, I had restored it lovingly. Polished the wood, replaced beams, even installed a security system. It was more than a barn. It was the heart of the land. And now, flames tore through its ribs like knives through flesh. As I stood there, fire trucks blaring down the lane, I caught sight of a figure at the end of the cul-de-sac. Arms crossed, bathrobe cinched tight, with that smug little smirk. I am Karen Whitfield, president of the Willow Creek HOA. She didn't even flinch at the flames. When I bought the property 2 years ago, I was looking for peace. I had spent decades in Washington, D.C. behind oak benches, presiding over cases that rattled the country. My rulings made headlines. My dissents were quoted in law schools. Lawyers called me ruthless. Criminals called me the hanging judge. My real name, Judge Samuel Trent, but out here, I just wanted to be Sam, the retired man with a barn, some corn and quiet sunsets. What I didn't realize when I moved into Willow Creek was that peace came with a price. Karen, she was the sort of woman who treated billiards like the Constitution in herself is its Supreme Court. The first day I moved in, she welcomed me with a 40-page handbook, highlighting everything from mailbox colors to approved lawn gnomes. Miss Barnes, she told me sharply, pointing to a line, are prohibited unless approved by the HOA board. I had nodded politely, but my barn wasn't new. It was older than Willow Creek itself. It had been standing here before their cul-de-sac was ever poured. As far as I was concerned, it was grandfathered in, literally. Karen didn't agree. The letters started small, greater than violation. Notice number 1, your barn exceeds while aesthetic standards. Paint color, not approved. Greater than violation. Notice number 2, the smell of corn. Silage is disruptive to the community. Greater than violation. Notice number 3, barn attracts pests. Imaginary. I ignored them. Then came the fines. $100, $250, $500. I ignored those two. When you've spent decades sentencing cartel bosses and corrupt senators, and whole fine doesn't exactly keep you up at night. But Karen was relentless. She showed up at my door during Sunday dinner. She shouted across the street about property values. She even tried to rally the neighbors, though most of them rolled their eyes. The barn became her obsession, and I became her enemy. When the fire chief declared the barn a total loss, I stood in the embers, arms folded, watching Karen whispering to another board member. She wasn't mourning. She was glowing. This was a safety hazard anyway, she said, loud enough for me to hear. Frankly, he's lucky. It's gone. My fists clenched, but I said nothing, because I knew something she didn't. The barn had cameras. Discrete, motion-sensing cameras tucked into the rafters. Cameras that uploaded directly to my cloud. The next morning, as ash still smoldered in the yard, I sat in my study, sipping black coffee, scrolling through footage. And there she was, Karen Whitfield. Midnight, gas can in hand, she struck a match like she was lighting a birthday candle. She had no idea what she had just done. I hadn't used my chambers in a while, but I still kept my contacts. I still knew the prosecutors, the marshals, the clerks. My retirement was informal, more of a hiatus. One phone call, and I could be back in the robe, presiding over cases again. But this wasn't about vengeance. It was about justice. I packaged the footage, the report, and the wall letters into a neat little file and sent them to the district attorney. Within 24 hours, an arrest warrant was signed. Within 48, Karen was in handcuffs, screaming about neighborhood politics as neighbors watched from their porches. I might have let it end there, had she not doubled down. The week after her arrest, Karen posted bail. She didn't return. Humbled, she returned like a storm. Flyers appeared on doors, claiming I had forged evidence. The HOA board received an emergency petition to expel me from the neighborhood. She even called a press conference on her lawn, ranting about judicial corruption. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I attended her little press circus, in silence. Then when the cameras turned off, I stepped forward and spoke low enough, only she could hear. You think this is a neighborhood? Squabble. It's not. You committed arson against federal property. Her face drained. Federal property, she stammered. I smiled. The barn was protected under a historic preservation grant. That makes it a federal crime. And guess who's been asked to temporarily oversee the case docket? Her jaw slackened. She finally realized she hadn't picked a fight with an old man in his barn. She had picked a fight with one of the most feared federal judges in the country. The courtroom was packed. The day of her arraignment, the cameras flashed. Reporters whispered. Karen shuffled in, pale and shaking. I wasn't on the bench, of course. That would have been a conflict of interest. But I sat in the front row, watching. My colleagues knew my history with the defendant. They also knew better than to go easy on her. The prosecution laid out everything. The harassment, the fines, the video of her lighting the match. The defense sputtered about property disputes, but the jury didn't buy it. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts of arson, harassment, and destruction of federal property, Karen sobbed. Sentencing was swift. 5 years minimum. The barn could never be replaced, not truly. But insurance and federal restoration funds helped rebuild a replica, stronger, safer, and still mine. The community, once silent, rallied around me. Neighbors brought pies, offered help, even signed a petition to dissolve the wall entirely. Within months, Karen's iron grip on Willow Creek was shattered, but the real victory wasn't the rebuilt barn. It was the reminder to her and to everyone that beneath the quiet farmer exterior still lived the judge who had sent mob bosses to prison and toppled corrupt officials. Karen thought she had burned me down. In truth, she had only reignited the fire I had carried all along. Sometimes I sit on my porch, coffee steaming, watching the new barn glow in the sunrise. The neighbors wave. Children play. Peace has returned to Willow Creek. But occasionally, I think back to Karen, sitting in a cell somewhere, telling herself she was a victim of politics. And I smile, because the truth is simple. She wasn't punished for hating a barn. She was punished for underestimating the man who owned it, Judge Samuel Trent, the feared, the unbending, the man she never should have crossed.